Hey y'all, today we are making homemade s'mores. So first up, we are going to be making marshmallows. I know y'all have been loving the homemade meals that I've been doing, so I thought that I would give y'all some homemade treats, to go along with all those other yummy homemade things we've been doing. Now I'm using a 9x9 pan that has somehow gotten warped, but it's my kitchen and here we are. Things like that just seem to happen in my kitchen. So you're going to want to get a lot of this stuff prepped ahead of time. That's why I'm doing this now, because it's going to go pretty quick once we start the cooking process. So I sprayed some cooking spray down in the bottom of my pan, and then I laid my parchment paper down. Then you're going to need to, I sprayed a little bit more. Clearly, I apparently cut that out because I don't see myself doing it. But I did put just a tiny bit more on the top of that. And then you're going to coat this really well with powdered sugar, okay? Some people mix powdered sugar with cornstarch. I don't find it necessary in this recipe, so I just use straight powdered sugar. That is the powdered sugar that we made together. We're going to use that, and we're going to use our homemade brown sugar both in these recipes today. So that video, will be linked for y'all in case you want to check that one out and you haven't seen it. So now that our pan is prepped, we're going to need our bowl for our stand mixer and the whisk attachment, and I've got this little silicone spatula, and I'm going to go ahead and spray some cooking spray on that to have it ready for later. So to this bowl, I added 1/2 cup of plain water right out of the faucet. Then you're going to need some unflavored gelatin. Now, this is beef gelatin. I get that from Amazon. This is the one I got at Walmart. I use both. I actually use the bag mostly, but this recipe, we're using 2 packets. So I just went ahead and grabbed the packets that I had in the cabinet. But you can use either one you want. If you don't do beef gelatin, this may not be the recipe for you. I don't know how well agar-agar would work in this recipe, but you could do the research if you want to see if you could use it. So you're just going to sprinkle that over your water and then sit it over to the side, and we'll be ready for it later on when we get ready, okay? So now I'm adding to a pot, sort of a medium-sized pot, 1.5 cups of plain white sugar, okay? Then we're going to add to that about 1/4 teaspoon of salt, okay? Just about 1/4 teaspoon. Then you're going to add in another 1/2 cup of water, because we added 1/2 cup to our gelatin mixture, and we're adding 1/2 cup here. And then we're going to add in 1 cup of light corn syrup. Now, I know a lot of people don't like corn syrup, don't want to use corn syrup, whatever the case is. If that's the case, you're going to have to find a different recipe. You cannot leave it out of this recipe. I don't know what you could even possibly substitute it for in this recipe, but there are a lot of recipes out there that don't have corn syrup. But I did a lot of research before I made this particular video, and a lot of people had trouble getting the consistency right without using corn syrup. So if you don't want to use the corn syrup, then I'm sure there's a lot of good recipes that don't have it in there. So you're also going to need a thermometer, some sort of a thermometer. That's my meat thermometer. I did order a candy thermometer because I find that I need a thermometer a lot more than I used to. So I went ahead and ordered one, but it's not in yet. So I'm using a meat thermometer. Use whatever you want. So we're going to have this on sort of a medium-high heat. Mix it up really, really good. You're going to bring this to a boil. Once it starts to boil, do not touch it. Do not stir it at all. Don't touch it. Let it boil. It's going to boil until it reaches the temperature of 240 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? Once it reaches 240 degrees Fahrenheit, you're going to have to be very quick with this, okay? The printable recipes, as usual, will be down in the description box for y'all, and we are going to make the s'mores at the end of this video, so make sure you stick around. So I got 240 degrees. My gelatin is ready. I've got my whisk attachment on, my bowl. It's all ready to go. Turn your mixer on low, and then very, very carefully, I'm going to say that again, very, very, very carefully, y'all. This is hot sugar. It's boiling sugar. It is sticky, and it is hot. Do not get this on yourself. Do not let this splash up on you. This is not something you want the kids to help you with, not this part. So very carefully pour that into the bowl of your stand mixer. And then you're going to want to increase the speed on this until you get it, like slowly increase it until you get max speed, okay? And you're going to let that mix until you get this consistency. It's going to look like marshmallow fluff, okay? That's the consistency that we want it to be, okay? And I'm just checking to make sure it's the right consistency. And don't worry about my stand mixer being dirty and my apron being dirty and my shirt being dirty, because I know somebody's going to say something. I clean everything at the end of the video, okay? And I've been cooking all day and I got stuff all over me and I'm not going to change clothes. So just putting that out there. So once you get your marshmallow cream to the consistency that you want it, you're going to add in about 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Mine was closer to a tablespoon because I don't measure, but about 2 teaspoons will do you. Then you're just going to mix that up really quick, and you're going to get your whisk attachment off of there, get your bowl off your mixer. This is, one of those parts that we need to move kind of quick on because it is going to start to set up on you, okay? So you're not going to be able to scrape, like you do a lot of times with cake or something, you scrape all the stuff out. You're not going to be able to do that with this. So get as much of it off as you can. There's our little grease spatula that I told y'all to have prepared. I got, a little bit off of my whisk attachment, and then I quickly pick it up and start pouring it into my prepared pan. And that is another reason why we had the pan prepared, so everything was ready to go for us, okay? Look how good it looks already, y'all. So you're just going to do the best you can. Don't waste a lot of time trying to scrape every bit out. Just get the bulk of it out of there and then move on, okay? And you're going to then want to spread this out as good as you can. Get it as flat as you can. Again, my pan was wonky, so mine come out a little bit wonky anyway, but that's all right. If I'm not doing something crooked and, are you really watching one of my videos? If I haven't flung something somewhere or messed something up in some way, are you really watching me? I mean, come on. So anyway, you're just going to smooth that out, and you can also use damp, clean hands to kind of press this out to get it as flat as you want it to be, okay? Then we're going to need to let this sit on the counter, just room temperature, for at least 4 hours. So this is definitely, this whole video, these recipes are something that you probably want to make the day before because they take a lot of time, just the sitting time. So once they've sat for the 4 hours, you're going to take some more powdered sugar and spread that out, a good layer of it. You don't want it super thin because I'll probably say this 80 times, these are sticky. These are very, very sticky. So you want a good layer of powdered sugar down, and then I'm also going to powder sugar the top of these to make sure that everything sticky is coated in powdered sugar, okay? And you can shake the powdered sugar off later, so it'll be fine, y'all. They're marshmallows. They're sweet, okay? They're sweet. They're going to be sweet. They're marshmallows. So now you're just going to flip your marshmallows over onto that, pile of powdered sugar you had. And you can kind of see, which I didn't even notice when I was cooking, but looking at the video, they look a little bit yellow in some spots. It's just the cooking spray. So don't worry about that. So now you're going to, guess what, more powdered sugar. So you're going to put more powdered sugar on the top because we want to make sure that all these sticky bits are good and coated, right? We don't want these sticking to everything. We want them to actually look like a marshmallow. We want to be able to pile them up on each other if we want to, and they don't stick together. That's going to require the powdered sugar, y'all. And some people mix their powdered sugar, I may have said this, some people mix their powdered sugar with cornstarch, but I don't find it necessary for this. So I am just kind of getting a little powdered sugar on my knife. Now somebody's going to freak out about me cutting on my mat. Somebody very kindly was like, oh my gosh, you're cutting on your mat. But y'all, there's a couple of things. One, I do this all the time and it's been fine. I haven't had any issues. Now that's not me giving you permission to do it on your mat, because if you cut your mat, don't come back and blame me and say, you said I could. No, I didn't. I never told you could do it. I just said I do it. So you're just going to want to cut these. But my knife is also super dull. I've had these knives for probably, this particular knife, I think I've had this at least 10 years, and I don't think I've ever sharpened it because it's not one that I use. So it's pretty dull. But just be careful even so, because it does still have a sharp tip. So I am being careful. So you're going to cut these into strips and then cut them into little squares. And that is going to be your marshmallows. Now, they are really thick. These are big marshmallows. So if you wanted them smaller, you could put them into a bigger pan so that they end up thinner, and then you can cut them into little smaller pieces if you want to. But once you get them all cut, you're going to dip the sticky edges, those inside edges, dip those into some more powdered sugar, shake off the excess, and that's it. These are so super simple, and they taste way better than store-bought marshmallows, y'all. And I think these will last, if you seal them up in a plastic bag or a container, these will last you about 2 weeks. But I mean, will they last that long? Probably not. You'll probably eat them way before then. But these are super, super good, and they're so easy to make, y'all. So easy to make. Yummy. So next up, we are going to make the graham crackers. So we're going to make all the parts of these s'mores, y'all. So I am using my food processor. You don't have to, but it will make your life a lot easier. So what I'm adding to this is 1.5 cups of whole wheat flour. This is the flour that I'm using. Use whatever kind of whole wheat flour. Does not matter. And then I'm going to add to this 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. So 1.5 cups of whole wheat, 1/2 cup of all-purpose. And these recipes, if I didn't say this already, I kind of pulled from different recipes to get what I ended up using. So if you do it and you're like, they taste too sweet, then you can back off the sugar. If they're not sweet enough, add some more sugar. You can tweak these to fit your taste, okay? So what I added just right there was some of our homemade brown sugar, 1 cup packed brown sugar, okay? Then I added in a teaspoon of baking soda. We're going to add about 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. You can add more or less or leave it out altogether if you don't want it in there. Then I added in about 1/2 teaspoon or so of salt, okay? And I'm just going to put the lid on and I'm going to mix this up just to make sure all our dry ingredients are really good and mixed in. We'll make sure all the baking soda and salt, everything is just throughout our mixture, okay, before we start adding wet ingredients to anything. So now that our dry ingredients are all good and mixed up, I don't know why I took the lid off, but you're going to need some very cold butter. So this stick of butter is 8 tablespoons. In America, our standard stick of butter is 8 tablespoons, and we need 7 for this recipe. So I'm going to cut 1 tablespoon off, and I'm going to put that back in the refrigerator to use it for something else later. So now I'm just going to cut this butter into cubes. So if you've ever made like a pie crust, and sometimes even in biscuits, depending on what recipe you're using, you know how you have to put little tiny cubes of your butter in there and then you mix it up until it's, good and incorporated. Well, that's what we're doing, okay? So I'm going to put the lid back on my food processor, and then I'm going to slowly drop in my little, what are those, cubes? Cubes of butter. And I'm going to kind of mix them in between, like just pulse it in between just to move the butter out of the way so I don't end up with a big clump of butter right there in one spot. So that's why you see me mixing in between, but that's not necessary. That's just me getting it mixed up. So then you're just going to pulse it until you get it, all that butter good and incorporated into the dry mixture. So to a bowl, you're going to add 3 tablespoons of milk. Okay, I'm using 2%, use whatever kind you want. Then you're going to add in about 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And then we're going to add in 1/3 cup of honey. I did put a little bit of cooking spray in my measuring cup just to help my honey come out a little bit easier. So, little tip if y'all didn't know that, because I know some of y'all do tell me that because sometimes I forget to do it, but I do know that I need to do it. But sometimes I get in a hurry and I just get going and I forget to do things. So anyway, and if I haven't, I never remember, because I have so much stuff going on in my head. I'm like, did I say that already? I don't know. So if I repeat myself, I apologize, y'all. But, here we are. Now I forgot what I was going to say. See there? Oh my goodness. Well, it'll come to me in a minute. Anyway, go ahead and whisk this up really good. And then you're going to, we're going to start slowly adding in our dry ingredients, okay? So this is the only wet ingredients that we're putting in here. It's the only wet ingredients. Oh, I know what I was going to say. And I think I did already say this, but these are definitely recipes you want to do ahead of time. Okay. Because once we get the dough made for these, they're going to need to sit in the refrigerator for several hours. So you add in half of your dry mixture, mix it up real good, and then add the second half. And you see how dry it looks? I promise it's going to mix. You're going to feel like it's not going to, but it will. I mix it up really good, and then I go in with a clean hand, and I just make sure that everything is really good and incorporated, okay? This is going to be a really soft dough. It's really soft, and it's kind of sticky. So that's why we need to put it in the refrigerator, because if you tried to roll it out like this, it would be a big mess. It just wouldn't do it. It's too soft. So you're going to take some plastic wrap, and I highly, highly recommend, if you don't already, spend a few extra pennies and get you the one that has the cutter on it. If y'all have been following me for any length of time, I've said this before, especially because when I get into those meal preps, the big meal preps and stuff, oh my gosh, trying to fight plastic wrap is a nightmare. It is such a headache. So get the ones with the cutter on it. It's going to make your life a lot easier. So I'm going to try to get this kind of pressed out into sort of a square-ish shape, because that's the shape we need to roll it out into to cut these square graham crackers out, right? It just kind of makes sense. And so that's why I'm pressing it out into sort of a square shape. In a pie crust, we press it out into a little circle. So for this, I press it out into a kind of a square. You're going to see when I start rolling it out. It doesn't matter anyway, because my brain cannot comprehend shapes apparently. But anyway, here we are. So wrap it up really, really good. And then you're going to put this in the refrigerator. See how soft that is? For several hours. Okay, I left mine in there overnight, just to be on the safe side, because it needs to be completely set up or it's not going to roll out right. So now you're going to get your some flour on your silicone mat or your, what is that? Or your clean counter. I never roll anything out on my counter, so I'm like, what is that thing? But you want a good bit of flour down, because like I said, it's a very soft and a very sticky dough. And even though we've had it in the refrigerator, so it is set up enough for us to work with it now, it's still soft and it's still sticky, okay? So just know that going in, and don't think you've done something wrong. So unwrap your little block of dough. At this point, you're going to go ahead and preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? And like I said, you're going to want to put a good layer of flour down. Then once you put your dough down, you're going to want to put a good bit of flour on top of your dough. Now, when I tell you a good bit of flour, you see, it's a good bit of flour. It's completely covered. You're also going to want to flour your rolling pin, okay? Because, again, very sticky dough. So you're going to try to roll this out as best you can. If you can get it into a rectangle, good on you. Somebody tell me the secret, because I've even tried turning my mat and everything else, and I can never get them to roll out into the shape I want them to. Now, if I was trying to get this shape, I would have rolled it out into a square somehow. I just can't do it, y'all. You know what? It's fine. It'll be all right. But you see where I got over to the edges and didn't have no flour? You see it sticking to my rolling pin? So keep the flour on standby. You're going to need it. You're going to want to roll this out to maybe an eighth of an inch, maybe a quarter inch. It needs to be pretty thin, okay? Because they are going to puff up a little bit. So I'm using, I know the knife, don't freak out, I promise y'all. This is very soft, and so I'm barely even touching it. And I had some graham crackers in the cabinet, so I used that as a guide on how big I needed to cut my crackers out. But you could definitely freehand this or use something else. I mean, I still didn't cut it straight, you can see. So I have some cookie sheets with some parchment paper on there. And you're going to need some sort of a little spatula. I love this little thing because it's metal and that little edge is a lot thinner than like a regular spatula is, or egg turner, whatever I call everything a spatula. But anyway, you're going to want to carefully get up under. See how careful I'm being? Just little tiny movements. If you try to go straight under, you're going to rip this dough. So you need to very carefully get it up off of whatever surface you have it on. And I do end up, after I do 1 or 2 of these, I dip my little thing in flour, and that made it so much easier going under there. But you're going to want to leave some space. You see how much space I'm leaving in between there? Because like I said, they are going to puff up. So you're going to put these in the oven, 325 degrees Fahrenheit, for about 10 to 12 minutes. I did go ahead and score these because I was trying to make them look like fancy graham crackers, y'all. So I just very carefully just look crooked. I cannot cut a straight line to save my life. So then I took a toothpick and I was like, I'm really going to make these look like a graham cracker because I am fancy and that's what I do. However, I should have used something a little bigger than a toothpick because you absolutely cannot see these once my cookies bake. So there you go. Look how good they look though going in. I looked like I was about to make a graham cracker. I mean crooked graham crackers, but still. See my little holes and my little lines? Yeah, it doesn't come out like that. But you're going to want to cook those, like I said, for about 10 to 12 minutes. If you want them harder, like crunchier, cook them a little bit longer till they're darker than this. These were still a little bit soft, which was fine by me. They were delicious. They're really like a cookie, y'all. They're so good. But I just kind of went ahead and separated where they had kind of were, touching so I wouldn't break them, when I got them up off the pan later. But I just let them sit right here, and they ended up making 2 pans. So that's how much it made. And what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So maybe about 20, 22-ish cookies, I think, or graham crackers. So I just kind of separated them, and then I just let them sit on the cookie sheet to completely cool. And I just let them sit there and see how soft they are right now. But look, you can't barely see my lines. You can't see any of the holes. It was a sad day, y'all, but they still tasted good. It still tasted good. So moving on to our chocolate bars. Now let me tell y'all are, okay, let me go ahead and put this out here. These are going to be semi-homemade. I'm using a bag of chocolate chips. And let me tell you why. I spent 2 days in the kitchen wasting so many ingredients when I found recipes that were the best chocolate bars you'll ever eat. These are so delicious and they're perfect. And they got 10 million views on them. And people were like, oh my gosh, these were so good. They were disgusting. Every one of them were disgusting. They tasted horrible to me. So that's still a work in progress. So we went semi-homemade for the chocolate bars. So I apologize if that hurts anybody's feelings. So I put my chocolate chips in the microwave for 30 seconds at a time until they were melted. I think it took a total of 1.5 minutes. So stir it every 30 seconds until your chips melt, okay? So I'm going to use a mold that I got off of Amazon, a silicone mold that is for candy bars, because, I'm fancy. And I'm going to pour my chocolate in there. And then all you have to do is smooth your chocolate out. And then I popped them in the refrigerator just to, get them to go a little bit quicker. And, yeah, you have a candy bar. It's super, super easy. You can add all kinds of add-ins to these and everything. And the good thing about using the chocolate chips is if you're doing like no sugar or something, then you can get the no sugar chocolate chips and do this same thing. Make your candy bars out of the no sugar chocolate chips. And if you like the taste of the chocolate chip, you'll love the taste of the candy bar because it's the same thing. But one thing I will say, mine ended up like they were thick, which would have been great if you were just like eating a candy bar. But for a s'more, it took a little bit longer to try to melt the chocolate because I made them so thick, but they were delicious. We still ate them. Don't get it twisted. We ate them. We sure did. So once I got my chocolate in, this is not a super thin chocolate because it's the chocolate chips and it sets up pretty quickly, but I just kind of bumped them to make sure they would smooth out on the bottom. And then I put them in the refrigerator, for an hour or so. And that was it. I had chocolate bars, y'all. But like I said, I know these are semi-homemade because I did make them at home, but I made them out of chocolate chips. But I tried so many variations of all the other like homemade with the cocoa and this bean, and that it did not come out for me. Now these are not the prettiest, but they dang sure tasted the best out of any of the ones that I made. So I'm not mad at them. I still feel like they're homemade, semi-homemade, but still homemade because I made them right at home. And then these are our graham crackers. They are super, super good. Like I said, the thinner that you get them, And the longer that you cook them, the crunchier they're going to be. If you don't cook them as long, like on the lower side of like 10 minutes instead of 12, then you'll end up with a chewier graham cracker, which I promise you, you could eat just like a cookie. They are so dang good. And then don't forget about our yummy marshmallows. I cannot wait to make these for my grandkids. They're going to love them because they love marshmallows. Every time they're here, they could really, if I would let them, they could tear through a bag of marshmallows. So I'm definitely going to have to make these for them. So when you get ready to do your s'mores, you can roast them if you want to, which I love the taste of a roasted marshmallow, or you can stack them like this, pop them in the microwave for like 10 seconds, and then you end up with yummy marshmallow goo. Now, I toasted the outside of this one and then popped it in the microwave. So good. So y'all need to make these s'mores. All right, that's all I've got for y'all today, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.